So this is about CNS physiology from Ivmrcs. Let's see what are the common questions asked about from this Ivmrcs about electrolyte and CNS. The question asked is resting membrane potential is maintained by potassium ions and action potential is through the influx of the sodium ion. So main primary active transport pump is sodium potassium pump. Now other thing which is asked is posteriorly, if you see spinal cord, this is the spinal cord, try to understand this is the anterior part, you get a ventral fissure, so this one is anterior part. So always the horn, you can see this is the gray matter, this is the white matter, and this is gray matter. So in this, if you are trying to understand this is white, this is gray, this is anterior part, this is posterior part, this is dorsal horn, this is ventral horn, this is lateral horn. So always ventral part, if you divide anteriorly, there is motor, anteriorly is motor. How to remember? In a car or any vehicle, the motor is in the anterior side, so it is motor nuclei, and posterior there is sensory things, and this is lateral horn. So typical spinal cord, if you try to understand, so this one is, you can see this violet color is afferent signal from muscles, gland, and mental. So efferent means their motor action, and this is afferent sensory, somatic sensory, visceral sensory. So from the muscles, pain, vibration, all these from the posterior. This is lateral horn. Most of the time temperature and pain is supplied from this lateral cord, autonomic efferent. Dorsal root ganglion is present in the posterior, so this is forming like this, the spinal arc. So posterior horn for sensory, lateral horn for sympathetic autonomic, and anterior horn for somatic motor. So most of the time lateral is for the autonomic. So what are the neurotransmitters? This is very commonly asked question is acetylcholine and adrenaline. Acetylcholine, all preganglionic. If you try to understand this, I just show you like this. If you see this one, sympathetic innervation of adrenal medulla. This one is general sympathetic, this is parasympathetic, and this is somatic. So if you see sympathetic innervation of adrenal medulla, this is preganglionic fibers, this is preganglionic. Ganglionic transmitter is acetylcholine, this is, and receptors in adrenal medulla are nicotinic. Then effect, they release epinephrine, norepinephrine in the blood, and they act on the adrenergic receptors. So this is about the adrenal medulla. Here you get acetylcholine, preganglionic transmitter, and the ganglion. Then if you come to sympathetic, again this is preganglionic fiber, acetylcholine, parasympathetic, acetylcholine. So whether it is adrenal medulla, sympathetic, parasympathetic, preganglionic neurotransmitter is always acetylcholine. It stimulates adrenal medulla. Medulla has got nicotinic receptors. Same sympathetic, the receptors are nicotinic, and when you see this is postganglionic neurotransmitter, here is norepinephrine. Adrenal medulla releases epinephrine and related compounds, while sympathetic fibers, postganglionic neuron release norepinephrine. So norepinephrine, they act again on the adrenergic receptors, adrenergic effector. While when you come to parasympathetic, when you go see for the parasympathetic, preganglion is always acetylcholine, receptors are nicotinic, all the receptors are nicotinic. Postganglionic fibers in parasympathetic is same acetylcholine, the receptors are muscarinic. So the difference in parasympathetic is muscarinic receptors, sympathetic is adrenergic receptors. And what is the peculiarity of parasympathetic? Preganglionic neurotransmitter is acetylcholine, postganglionic neurotransmitter is acetylcholine, receptor is muscarinic. While in sympathetic, preganglionic is acetylcholine, postganglionic is norepinephrine, receptor is adrenaline. In sympathetic adrenal medulla, preganglionic acetylcholine, receptor is nicotinic, postganglionic is adrenaline, epinephrine. If you see same in the somatic, the fibers are coming, there is no ganglion, it is directly going on the muscles or something. Pre-sympathetic is always acetylcholine, preganglionic, and receptors are nicotinic. Okay, in the muscles, these are nicotinic. So these are stimulating the muscle through acetylcholine, and receptors are nicotinic. So this is about postganglion neurotransmitter. This was about neurotransmitters. Now, what about sensory or ascending tract? So you have to understand this ascending and descending tract. What is their difference in descending and ascending tracts? Spinothalamic, just first try to understand. It is carrying from spinal cord, going to thalamus, and getting decussated and into the cortex. Highermost level is cortex. This is level of thalamus. This is medulla, spinal cord, and lateral spinothalamic tract. The first order neuron, sensory from the dorsal root, it is synapsing here. The second order neuron, it is crossing at the same level. So pain and temperature, they are spinothalamic tract. They are crossing at the same level and rising up to the thalamus and going to the same side. So if any transaction of there at this level, hemitransaction, bronchiquet, the sensation from the opposite side is lost because this crossing is doing at the lower level. So pain and temperature of the opposite side is lost. While lemniscus pathway, it is coming from above cerebral cortex, thalamus, and they are decussating on the level of medulla, and it is going down. And here is the direct. So first order neuron. This is about the touch and vibration. This is touch and vibration, and this is pain and temperature. Touch and vibration, this first order neuron, they are rising on the same side, they are decussating at the medulla, and they are going to cortex. So if transaction is on this side, lower at the spinal cord, half side, so touch and vibration on the same side is lost. While if it is transition at the same side, the touch and pain and temperature of the opposite side. So this is lemniscal pathway, this is spinothalamic. From spine to, the difference in the two is, here the level of decussation is at the level of medulla. That's why the same site touch vibration 2-point description is lost. While here the decussation is at the level of spinal cord only. That's why pain temperature of the opposite side is lost. This is now the questions which is coming. Pain and temperature sensation cross the spinal cord, the opposite side, and pass to the lateral spinothalamic at the same level. Pain pathway, stimulant, pain causes by pain mediated by prostaglandin E2, bradykinin, histamine, serotonin. Receptors, free nerve endings, nerve fibers, C fibers. Slow pain pathways, anterior pathways, lateral spinothalamic tract. These tracts are lateral. What is TENS? Transcutaneous electric stimulation. Mechanism of action is gate control theory. TENS through electrical stimulus, A beta and A delta fast conducting fibers as touch sensation cause inhibition of C fibers. So C fibers of the pain by stimulation are inhibited. Proprioception, they decussate at the level of medulla. Prostaglandin, these are the types of, this is about prostaglandin. Prostaglandin E2 promote inflammation, pain, mediate fever by acting on the hypothalamus, stimulate protection of the stomach. Prostaglandin E2, vitamin D inhibits platelet aggregation. Prostaglandin F2 mediates smooth muscles, and prostaglandin D2 mediate allergy. So that was ascending tract. Now coming to descending tract, this is a simple thing you have to understand. Descending tract means they are carrying motor sensation from above to down. So motor sensations are carried from brain. Here you can see this is the brain. Precentral is sensory, postcentral. Sorry, this is the frontal part. This is the occipital part. So precentral gyrus is the motor. From here, upper motor neurons, they are coming down to the spinal cord. They are crossing at the level of this medulla only, and they are coming to the anterior horn, called motor horn. This is lower motor neuron acting on the muscles. This is the upper motor neuron coming from above, green color, till the anterior horns of the spinal cord, and brown color is the lower motor. So sensory is carried like this, crosses here, it goes up to the postcentral gyrus. This motor is coming from above. This is the motor action. So any lesion here from above, the inhibitory action is lost, so this will be causing direct action like this. This is called a spinal reflex, sensation carried from the posterior horn. So what happens in motor? Damage control cortical motor neuron along the course of descending pyramidal tract. So site of injury has to be above the L1 level. L1. Effect is opposite side of the body and widespread hemiplegia. Because this upper motor neuron are decussating at the level of medulla. So opposite side of in upper motor reflexes may stay spinal shock first, then hypertonia and hyperreflexia. Hypertonia, class neck spasticity, hyperreflexia, brisk reflexes. If there is lower motor damage to anterior horn cells or their axons, this is lower motor neuron. Below L1 again, same side of sensory, because it is direct, it's not crossing, it is same side of sensory, same side of injury. And reflexes are atonia. This is flaccid and areflexia. Now coming to this superficial reflex has deep plantar. Superficial reflex has deep plantar reflex. Deep reflex has tendon jerk, muscle tone, retractor. Stages shock after spinal cord injury in upper motor neuron. Absence of all reflexes for hours to days. Upper motor of essential hyperreflexia, hypertonia. Upper inhibition is lost, so there will be hyperreflexia. First reflex appears is deep plantar reflex, 0 to 24 hours. Then bulbocavernous reflex, sphincter contraction upon stimulation of glans or clitoris or pulling the Foley's catheter. Superficial reflex appears first, then deep reflex. Deep plantar is superficial reflex, and deep reflex is tendon jerk. What is plantar reflex? You are scratching this, that is foot. So the thumb is getting, the great toe is getting, instead of flexing, extension. So that is a superficial plantar reflex. And deep plantar is a tendon jerk, you are just waking. So whether it is superficial plantar reflex or deep reflex. So what happens? First reflex to appear is deep plantar reflex. This, if this has appeared, means spinal shock is gone down. Then second, then bulbocavernous reflex appears. What is the diseases at neuromuscular junction? So we have seen this neurotransmitters, parasympathetic, sympathetic. In myasthenia gravis, it is an autonomic disease results from antibodies that block nicotinic acetylcholine receptor at the neuromuscular junction. It is at the neuromuscular junction. We have seen this muscles and the neurons. This is coming. Somatic acetylcholine nicotinic receptor. This is acting and So this is the neuromuscular junction. These are blocked by in myasthenia gravis. So what happens? Nicotinic block nicotinic acetylcholine receptors at neuromuscular junction. Weakness starts at the eyes and moves down. Weakness. So results from antibody that block presynaptor. Actually, it is before block nicotinic acetylcholine receptors at neuromuscular junction. Eaton-Lambert syndrome, autonomic disorder that results from autoantibodies damage to voltage-gated calcium channels, so prevent release of acetylcholine at neuromuscular junction. Again, acetylcholine cannot be released here. And botulinum toxin produced by clostridium prevents release of neuronal at neuromuscular junction. So same is the neuromuscular junction presynaptic receptors. These are antibodies against neuromuscular receptors. So this is about the structure of skeletal muscle. You see there are two bands. This is, if you see like this, I band, A band, I band. A band is a larger band, I band is a smaller band. Myofibrils. This is M line. Sarcomere, thick filament, thin filament. When they contract, they slide over each other. M line is constant. During contraction, A is constant and I band is decrease. So you see I band is coming close and A is constant. So here you can see this is M line, this is coming, this one is the A band. This A band is constant, this is moving like this is moving like this. So I band is moving. During muscle contraction, A band is constant, I band is decrease. This is I band, this is I band. You can see this is I band, this is I band. A is in the center. So A band is constant. This is sliding. You see here I band has decrease in size, A band is constant. So incomplete, what happens in the different types of transactions? Here is loss of lesion. So same side motor function, primary precision, 2-point description is lost, and opposite side pain temperature. This is Brown sequoid. Incomplete cord transactions. Central cord. If there is central cord syndrome, anterior cord syndrome, and here is hemi. The central cord. This is central cord. This is anterior cord, and this is lateral cord. So to understand this, Brown sequoid is hemisection, ipsilateral loss of paralysis and pain in temperature. Pain in temperature of the opposite side is there. In central cord, degenerative tract around the central cord effect more on the cervical region than on the lumbar region, causing spinothalamic tract. Decusseting are involved in pain in temperature and upper limbs bilaterally affected. So upper limbs are more common affected. Cauda equina lesion is below the level of conus medullaris L1. Lower motor affects lower limb. Weakness in both the limbs. Saddle anesthesia. Urinary incontinence. Posterior cord hyperextension causing fracture of the posterior vertebra. Loss of proprioception. Good power and pain. Basically, anterior muscles are supplied by the anterior cord. That's what pain and temperature as well as power is there in the posterior cord syndrome. Proprioception. Anterior cord syndrome, this is power is supplied to the muscle, pain in temperature is also lost, dorsal columns affected. Parkinsonism rigidities lead to pipe-like rigidity or cock-like rigidity, diseases in the basal ganglion due to decrease. Basal ganglion, you will get cogwheel. Parkinsonism, basal ganglion, cogwheel rigidity. Cerebral ataxia, pica syndrome, decompensation movement, there will dysarthria, kinetic tremors, nystagmus has to be there. In Parkinsonism, pill rolling, thumb and index finger. Now, autonomic nervous system, you can see how is the autonomic nervous system. There are two different types of sympathetic and parasympathetic. This is sympathetic, this is parasympathetic. Sympathetic causes pupillary dilatation. Parasympathetic causes pupillary constriction. So bronchodilation. Whenever there is stimulation of there is bronchodilation, pupillary dilatation, increased cardiac property, vasoconstriction, GIT inhibition. It inhibits parasympathetic causes release, and GIT causes retention, and decrease gastric emptying, urine and stool retention. So retention, bowel there is retention, pupil there is dilatation. So this is causing release, dilatation, release of the doors. So dilatation means it is stopping, mydriasis opening, bronchus dilatation, CAS increase only vessels, it is causing vasoconstriction. And ejaculation, regarding this, it will cause secretion. Sympathetic stimulation causes secretion from the hypogastric splanchnic nerves. Parasympathetic is causing meiosis, pupillary constriction, bronchoconstriction, CVS inhibition, decreased property, GID stimulation, peristalsis increase, gastric emptying increase, motions, defecation is there, urinary pelvic splanchnic causes antireducing contraction, to an erection, pelvic splanchnic. This is hypogastric splanchnic is secretion, pelvic splanchnic is erection. So urinary bladder control, how is it? Involuntary control and voluntary control. Voluntary by the external sphincter, it is supplied by pudendal nerve causing external relaxation. Involuntary is pelvic splanchnic nerve cause detrusal muscle contraction, internal urinary. So erection and ejaculation. Ejaculation is secretion by hypogastric. Erection is pointing by pelvic splanchnic. Contributes to pelvic. Both is causing pelvic. Now, what is autonomic dysreflexia? It is a serious medical condition that occurs at the level of T6. This is the question. At the level of T6, characterized by exaggerated autonomic system response to noxious stimuli and level stimulus. Block catheter can be can be blocked, that may lead to autonomic reflexia. Pressure sores in growing nails. Stimulus can be block catheter, impacted stool, pressure sore, ingrowing nail, pain below the level of injury. Response overstimulated sympathetic response, hypertension, headache, sweating, bradycardia. This is autonomic dysreflexia. So that was about physiology of central nervous system.